When was the last time you took an amazing vacation? You went away to get much needed rest. Well, an amazing vacation for me would be in Frankfurt on Lake Michigan, where I would sit on the beach and take in all the sounds of my surroundings, the water coming into the shoreline, the seagulls sounding from the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. Being engulfed by God's creation was the best reset button for me. A vacation is a short lived time that we get to indulge in and then we get to go back home. Well, God wants to offer us more than a trip up north or wherever that may be for you. In the book of Hebrews, I'm going to focus on the rest of God, which is in Hebrews 4. What does the rest of God look like for both you and I? Well, God is looking to offer us daily rest in his presence. God's rest needs to be mixed with faith. Let's look at the Israelites. God offered the Israelites a rest that they had never experienced since being in bondage when they were in Egypt. Egypt was so ingrained in the hearts of the people that they could not allow themselves to enter into what God was offering. They were bound by the past and therefore couldn't see beyond that reality into tomorrow. The children of Israel were disobedient because they did not believe in the goodness of God. Dare I say, they didn't recognize his goodness because they lost hope due to their oppressors in Egypt. What or who are your oppressors? What stands in the way of entering that eternal rest here on earth for you today? Well, the Israelites, they believed the wrong report. It was a bad report, and it was one that the world offered them. The spies went into the land, and only two came back speaking faith. Joshua and Caleb believed the word of the Lord. They were not moved by the circumstances in this newly promised land. They saw the possibilities. What do you need to speak faith to in your life today? Are you believing the world's report? How often do I refuse to enter his rest? What choices have we made to not enter his rest today? For myself, I often choose my work because it is never done. It is currently a job of unending paperwork and documentation. I choose to not enter his rest fully by putting my work before him, such as maybe not attending church, staying home and streaming online because it becomes more convenient. I am not prioritizing that which I care about and means something to me. For what don't you have time? Now, granted, we are in the middle of a shutdown, so things have changed for the last year. Ask yourself, what do I need to say yes to in order to enter his rest? In Hebrews 4:6, the Passion Translation says, those who first heard the good news of deliverance failed to enter into that realm of faith's rest because of their unbelieving hearts. Yet, the fact remains that we still have the opportunity to enter into the faith rest life. I really want you guys to pick up on that. The faith rest life and experience the fulfillment of the promise. Do the doubts that lurk among you enter in and spoil the promise that is waiting for you? The idea of laboring continuously was ingrained in the Israelites. They didn't know how to rest. Therefore, they did not recognize the invitation, nor could they receive the gift of rest from God. The Israelites didn't know how to trust and believe God. They had a false image of him in their hearts. Back in Egypt, they had terrible taskmasters. What are your taskmasters that threaten your well-being or maybe your peace of mind? Could your taskmaster be yesterday's sin, unmet needs, loss? You fill in the blank. Is there something in this season that God has been asking you to set down? Jesus sat down at the right hand of the Father when his work was finished here on earth. What is he asking you to sit down with him? The Israelites only saw with their own perspective, which was worldly, and not what God was offering, which was rest from the 400 years of being in Egypt. The Lord wanted to bless them and have them enter his rest, which was the promised land, which flows with milk and honey in Deuteronomy 11:9. The Bible presents this as a continuous promise from God. The land was teeming with resources, just waiting for them with abundance. And this invitation still stands for us, his beloved. He invites us into this rest. Let us not be like the generation of Israelites that were disobedient to the Lord, but instead, let us learn to trust him so we don't die in the wilderness. There was a physical, but also a spiritual death. Let us not follow in the Israelites' footsteps that believed the evil report. For God says, they refused and did not enter because they did not believe in the goodness of God. Due to their choice, they stayed in the wilderness the rest of their lives. What keeps you in the wilderness? Fear of the unknown? What is it for you? Joshua and Caleb were convinced of the goodness of God because they had seen him work in Moses and they believed in his promises. God spared their lives because they believed. The others didn't trust and they died in the wilderness. The milk and honey represent the provision of God. And there are some key words that stood out to me that I just wanted to highlight that you might want to take a look at and think about a little more deeply. Believe, faith, trust, and disobedience. So the Israelites, they did fail to enter the promised land, the promise of God's rest. They were threatened by the giants in this new land. However, God promised this rest, and it could be obtained by conquering the giants in it. And we are no different. We all have giants to conquer in our lives so that we can get to that promised rest that Jehovah God wants to give to us. Hebrews 4:8-11 states, now, if this promise of rest was fulfilled when Joshua brought the people into the land, God wouldn't have spoken later of another rest yet to come. So we conclude that there is still a full and complete rest waiting for believers to experience. As we enter into God's faith rest life, we cease from our own works, just as God celebrates his finished works and rests in them. So then we must give our all and be eager to experience this faith, rest, life. I really want you all to think about that phrasing, this faith, rest, life, so that no one falls short by following the same pattern of doubt and unbelief. The Israelites stayed in the wilderness for 40 years because they hardened their heart against the Lord. This was rebellion against God, according to Hebrews 3 and 8, and again 10, where it states, "Wherefore I was grieved with that generation and said, they do always err in their heart, and they have not known my ways." The promise stands before us today, according to Hebrews 4, 1 through 3. Now God has offered to us the same promise of entering into his realm of resting in confident faith. So we must be extremely careful to ensure that we all embrace the fullness of that promise and not fail to experience it. For we have heard the good news of deliverance just as they did, yet they didn't join their faith with the word. Instead, what they heard didn't affect them deeply, for they doubted. For those of us who believe, faith activates the promise, and we experience the realm of confident rest. The promises that God has spoken into your life are waiting for you. The world right now seems to be spinning upside down, but God has it in his hands. How is God inviting you to enter into his rest this week? What do you need to set down or turn off? He is waiting for you to meet with him in that secret place he is calling you to.